Hello and welcome to another episode of SoFly. It's November 27th.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's 8 a.m.
That's right, baby.
Getting this one out before the day starts. My name is Mitch. We've got Aldo.
Hey, everybody.
We've got another episode for you here today.
A fantastic episode, I would say.
Yeah, with Josh from Courage Fly Fishing, another Ottawa fellow. So we're
Yes, a Musky guide of all things.
Yeah.
Well, not of all things. It's actually the thing to guide in Ottawa, I would argue.
I would think, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a good show. It was a fun chat we had with Josh. This was recorded a couple weeks back.
I was in BC.
Yeah, that's right. And then we went fishing with him recently. So we've actually gotten to meet him in person.
Yeah.
And fish with him and spend the day. And it was super fun.
And he gave me this shirt.
Yeah. Courage. Thanks for the shirts, Josh.
Yeah, sweet.
And the stickers.
Yeah.
Love it. But before we get into that, why don't we kick the show off with what we always do, which is a little bit of ongoings within the community. And yeah.
Well, we got, we recorded this a couple weeks ago, like you said. It's November 27th, but this comes out December 1st. So if you're listening December 1st, we've got something coming up December 10th, which is kind of fun, which is we are going to be at the Hamilton area fly fishers and tires. So if you are a member of that group, you're going to see us. We're going to be at your club. We're going to be chatting and talking about fishing opportunities in Northern Ontario, which will be really, really cool. And just meeting everybody in general and, talking about fly patterns and stuff like that work in the north for pike and brook trout, mainly.
Yeah.
And then, which is really, really fun. But as an aside, meetings for the HAFFT, HAFT, are held on the second and fourth Tuesdays of every month from September to April at the Police Association at 555 Upper Wellington Street, Hamilton. Why I'm mentioning this is newcomers and visitors are always welcome. So if you are in the Hamilton area and you're like, oh man, I wish I had some people to chat fly fishing with, whether we're there or not, maybe you should check this out because it looks like, they're always welcoming visitors and newcomers. And then maybe you can join up or whatever. And if you're curious about the club or, need a friendly face there, we're going to be there on the 10th and please come out.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah. So that'll be fun. And then if I just look over to the Ottawa Fly Fishers, also on December 10th, they're going to be tying flies with April Vokey.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. She's going to be joining April, of course, host of Anchored Outdoors. Will be joining the Ottawa Fly Tires, or the Ottawa Fly Fishers, sorry, to tie flies via Zoom.
Oh, fun.
So if you're a member of the Ottawa Fly Fishers, that's going to be really, really cool.
That is cool. That is awesome.
Yeah. And then around these parts, other than that, not much is going on. A lot of Black Friday sales happening. I think they're wrapping up probably by the time this comes out. So check out Drift, check out Chums.
Probably find a lingering sale.
Get that Christmas shopping early or buy something for yourself. Hey, you deserve it.
Treat yourself.
Yeah. Or
SoFly 15. I think that's the promo code.
Yes, it is. And then or treat yourself to a guide day. Go over to Courage Fly Fishing if you're in Ottawa.
That's right.
Hey, buy yourself a guide day.
Yeah, go with Josh. So Josh has this musky thing dialed in Ottawa, fishing some of the beautiful rivers of the Ottawa Valley. So yeah, we talk all about that today, and we get into it. Why don't we get into it right now?
Okay.
Let's just jump right in with Josh because this is a fun show. Enjoy us getting to talk and nerd out with another Ottawa fly guy, someone we just met. Here it is, Josh Courage. Josh Butler, otherwise known as Courage Fly Fishing, is a guide from our hometown of Ottawa, Ontario. He primarily guides for muskie and bass on the beautiful rivers of the region. He got into fly fishing as a result of family influence. His grandmother and grandfather grew up in Newfoundland fishing trout and Atlantic salmon on the fly. As a kid, they would share stories of time on the water, which helped spark and begin growing Josh's curiosity and passion for fishing. When he was 9, he first fished a fly out in Newfoundland and was hooked from then on. Over the course of his life, the traditions, history, and stories from the water have kept the love for angling burning in him. He's driven to continuously learn and improve, which is awesome. And his first fish on the fly was a brook trout, but his first time on So Flies Today. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're very excited to have you on. I've kind of followed Courage for a while, and I remember looking up one time because there's not like a ton of fly fishing guides in Ottawa. Actually, I don't know really many. So I remember seeing Courage and thinking that's pretty cool, And since then you've obviously been doing so well with the Musky thing, and that's a huge thing. But very fun to talk to an Ottawa fella because we're from Ottawa.
Yeah, and Ottawa's a spectacular fishery, and it's been a great fall for Courage too. We've had some boys from Toronto in the boat. We've caught some really great fish. We got some good photos that are floating around the Instagram. So I'm proud of what this fall is turning into.
Absolutely.
We said on a few shows ago, we used to, things are obviously changing with the climate, but like we always used to associate October with the beginning of our steelhead season, but it's now, I think, October is going to be more of a musky month for us, and then steelhead can wait for November and December. You know what I mean?
October is a terrific time for musky, but rain plays significantly into that too. I understand It's been a tough year for you guys in Southern Ontario.
Yeah, it's been a little slow and low. But for myself, anyways, I know there's lots of anglers out there having a blast catching fish. I'm not. I caught 6 bass the other day. That was fun.
I've seen some big bucks floating around though.
Yeah, they're out there. They're out there for sure. But once we get some rain, it's going to be a little more promising for what me and Idis are into. At least we want to get out there and swing, on that big water. But the musky thing is absolutely radical. We saw it was Nick and Justin, right? Shout out to those fellas. Yeah,
Nick and Justin killed it. They both got PBs on the fly. Justin hooked. There was a video floating around for a bit, but we never saw the fish. But It had him pinned to the bottom. And I've never had a fish under 48 do that to me. He couldn't lift it. He couldn't turn it. The rod was corked right over. We were seeing the head shakes. And then it zipped under the boat. Justin executed perfectly, cleared the trolling motor, moved to the other side of the boat. The fish must have been hooked to one side of the face, so the change of direction came free, but he'll remember that one.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, that looked like it was just a day of big fish and lots of fun there, a couple days there. But why don't we kind of get into your fly fishing stuff and what you're doing out in Ottawa? Where are you calling in from right now?
I'm in the east end of Ottawa. I'm in Orleans.
Okay. You said you were looking to move to the west end? That's awesome, man. That's stomping grounds.
My wife and I were looking around Arm prior.
Heck yeah.
I grew up in Orleans, and the east, lower Ottawa is world-class musky water. That's where you go if you want a 50. It's challenging water on the fly. It's big, open, endless weed lines, not visible structure. You're kind of blindly casting in what seems like open river. You're relying on me to tell you you're in the zone, but it's challenging for a fly angler. So our smaller tributaries, I think, for the average angler, offer a lot better opportunities on the fly.
Yeah, you can pick them apart a little more, right? Like we were talking about the Mississippi in Ottawa, which is a huge river, and it's kind of more got that there's lots of different big sections, littler sections. It's a cool one to explore.
Yeah, it's intimate, and there's something special about being casting under trees and rock piles you can see, and weeds popping up to the surface, and sunken brush, and that stuff's exciting as a fly angler.
Yeah, for real. Okay, East End, right on. Boo! First of all, although were you from downtown, right? Like center town?
Yeah, I grew up in Westboro, so pretty much right downtown, west of downtown. If that makes any sense. Yeah. So I was always fishing the Ottawa River myself, but not the eastern part of it. But for maybe some people listening, the Ottawa River is not a small river by any means. I crossed the Mississippi the other day in driving back from Montana, and to give you maybe some American listeners some context, it's pretty pretty much the exact same size. It's huge.
Right.
So it's a lot of water for Josh and his clients to cover. So I can definitely talk, when you say there's a lot of water to cover, like it's no
Get
joke.
that.
It's
Yeah.
huge water.
It's intimidating. Yeah.
Yeah, it's intimidating. So
Can
it's
be.
cool to we'll definitely dive into all things Ottawa today, which I'm pretty stoked for.
Yeah, well, why don't we start there? Like intimidating water. You learned how to fly fish. First time you fly fish was out in Newfoundland. Then that's where it began, kind of out east.
Yeah, that's where it began. And then I did my undergrad. I started at Montreal, and then I moved out to Newfoundland and finished it at Memorial. And I didn't own any of the gear at that time. I'd fly fished a couple times with my grandfather. And but it's the river that runs right through the city is loaded with sea run brown trout. They say it has the Avalon Peninsula has some of the highest concentrations of brown trout in all of North America.
Oh wow!
So I'd go down after school, after work, and fish them.
Yeah.
I spoke to the locals, and how we did it was you get a cheap conventional rod.
Yeah.
This is the Waterford River. And you get a little block of wood or a big bobber, and then you put flies on the end. So you use the block of wood to get the momentum to chuck the flies out.
Yeah.
Caught all sorts of fish. It was a riot.
Yeah.
But that opens the world of, I'm not really doing this way it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
Maybe I should look into a little bit more of
how to
the
actually
way I should be doing it.
Yeah.
Then I went to the Blue Charm, which was the fly fishing store in St. John's, and looked at the rods and looked at the flies and talked to some of the guys who worked there. And I think that moment of going into a real fly shop and talking to some real fly anglers was the breaking point for me.
Right. You're like, oh, this is cool.
Man.
Yeah.
Just like
such a cool name
fishing.
Such a good name for a fly shop, and also a fly, by the way. Like Blue Charm is like the coolest name for a fly, right?
It took the words right out of my mouth, Mitch.
Yeah,
I was like, what a great name for a shop. Is that shop still there?
That's a good question. I was wondering when I brought it up. Look it up.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Okay, so you started. I mean, that's interesting. Actually, that's exactly how I started, dude. Well, not exactly, but like throwing flies behind a spinning rod. And not doing it right, so to speak, But I was like, this is fun. I remember hooking my buddy. I hooked him in the neck one time because I was casting my spinning rod like a fly fishing rod, and it was not good. But
I was perplexed. I was wondering, like, I thought fish always ate worms, and I can't catch them on worms, but they'll eat flies. And then started hanging out with guys who'd fly fish and this beautiful cast, and I was like, this is just like regular fishing, but cooler. I want to do that.
Yeah. That's awesome. So then you come back to Ottawa after school kind of thing and start fishing there?
No, I came back and tried to figure it out and went to the Salmon River during the salmon run thinking it would be like Newfoundland, and I was sadly disappointed.
Yeah. It's like a passage, like a rite of passage for Ottawans, isn't it? Like that's exactly what we did too when we were younger, and it's like, oh, what the heck is going on here? Like people with baseball helmets on because I don't want to get weights hitting in the head, like. What a scene, man.
But it's a spectacular steelhead fishery. You just have to wait till the, I guess as the locals call it, the circus clears out, and then the river's full of steelhead. There's less anglers, especially if you get there a weekday. I've had some terrific days down there.
Yeah.
But that's when the gear started turning, and fly fishing doesn't have to be trout and salmon. What can I do closer to home?
Yeah. And so that's when you came back to Ottawa and started figuring out, there's this musky thing going on, this bass thing going on.
Well, that's a two-step thing. So I found the bass. I was loving the bass, but my heart was for the steelhead. I wanted to swing flies for steelhead.
Yeah.
It was the high risk, high reward. I wanted to work all day and maybe get one grab, one fish for a 2-day trip that I can be really proud of.
Mm-hmm.
I was just probably going down there like 10 times a winter.
Wow.
Wow. Nice.
And then I thought there has to be something like this at home. something that not a ton of fish, big fish, spectacular fish that I can work hard for, and fish that one is going to make my whole outing, make my whole season even. And that's what led me to Musky.
Okay. That's a really cool way to put the Musky thing, actually. Yeah, like I love that. That came from a want of, I don't have this big thing. I catch one fish thing, make it special, and then you found it with Musky. Like that's so smart. I love that.
Yeah. So truth be told, Musky filled a void that I was looking to fill, and then completely snowballed and took over my life.
So how did you start to figure that out? Like, what was your foray into the Musky Ottawa region thing?
So I truly believe that Musky on the fly isn't something that you can go out and figure out anyway effectively on your own. You've got to have a push in the right direction, whether that's a book, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a YouTube series. You have to have that push. So for me, it was two friends of mine, Cam Frey. Cam works in the fishing department at Sale from PEI. Wonderful guy. If you're in Ottawa, pop into Sale, talk to Cam. He's terrific. Nice. And there was another guy named David Sullivan who's very active in social media. A little over 5 years ago, he was the Musky guy in Ottawa. He started Urban Fly Co. This was the old days of Instagram when it was all photo based. Yeah. But he was doing some terrific stuff. He took me under his wing. They both gave me some tips. Cam tied me some flies, sold me a couple of flies. I bought an inflatable single person pontoon. Yeah. First day out, I went on the Rito and I got 2 fish. What? I slept in. I had no idea what was I doing. I got a nice tiger, and then I got a nice clear, solid musky. And I got on my phone and I texted these guys photos, and they were kind of like, "That's not how it usually is."
Yeah, like I got bad news for you, dude.
Yeah. It's not how it is, and I figured that out because I fished probably once or twice a week for the remainder of that summer. And it wasn't until Halloween that I managed to catch another muskie. But wow.
That is a way to hook you. Like that's what happened to Idis when we went steelheading with him for the first time. He got a beautiful fish, like on the swing. He's like, oh, this is like whatever, And then I don't think he's ever caught another one in his life. No, he has.
That's not true. That's not true. He's caught one other one on the swing for sure.
That's a hard thing. So the musky thing, I get that. That must have been like, oh, but it must have like hooked you. You must have just been like the tiger and a beautiful, other musky. What'd you call the other musky? Just like a clear.
There's 3 different color patternations. There's spotted, cleared, and spotted, clear, and striped. Okay. So the clear ones, I think, are the most common.
Yeah. But were they big? Were they like big fish? Some of those 2 that you caught?
I think one was just over 40 and the other was mid 30s. So they were big enough.
There you go.
That's a good day in a tube on the Rito.
On a tube
in the Rito. I love that.
Yeah. I tell all my clients, your first muskie is always your hardest or your easiest, and it seems to go one of those 2 ways.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I love that you said like muskie isn't just something you can just pick up on your own, because I think, at least in my own experience, we always talk about fishing for pike. We love fishing for pike, and then in your head you're like, same, and then you go do it once, you're like, not same, very different, I'm wrong, I don't know what I'm doing. I need to do a lot more research and work. So I think that's a really poignant thing to say, that some sort of mentorship or educational process needs to happen, which maybe this show is going to be for somebody in the Ottawa region.
And I tell everyone, Ottawa is a small community. As fly fishermen, we don't catch a lot of fish. We're not really a big threat to others, like out blowing up each other's spots. In terms of other fly fishers, hit me up on Instagram. I'll chat. I'll tell you flies. I'll give you a push in the right direction. It's just really nice to support that community of other people out trying to catch fish these ways.
Yeah.
Cool.
I love the Rito tube thing, man. Like I did the same thing when I got my fish cat. I like
You
took
have a
it.
fish cat?
I have a fish cat. I bought it at
Which
LeBaron, I think.
that's what I started with.
If you remember LeBaron, yeah, I bought it at LeBaron for like $120, and I took it to the Rito, and I was literally like in between huge like yachts floating down the Rito, and I'm just like like catching nothing, like just like holy shit, it's like, oh man. So I didn't have the musky day you did, but yeah,
The Rito's a crazy place.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
then you get up there in the dark to go fishing, and then the slalom skiers are out to hit that glassy morning water.
Oh right, true. Hey, yeah, I didn't even think that. So like you're getting like boating traffic first thing in the morning.
Yeah, so
Weird.
that's a big reason why like the fall right now is the sweet spot.
Right, it's kind of quieting down. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe, and part of talking about this, like, we do have a lot of American listeners. Like, why don't we, we grew up in Ottawa. We're taking all these places for almost like,
Yeah.
we know what all these places are. What is the Ottawa River? What's the Rito River? Like what?
Good point.
Maybe let's explain to the audience a little bit, like,
What's
where
Ottawa?
are these
What are the
places
fishing
and what
ops?
kind of rivers are they are?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And Ottawa, what made it a city and what it made it become the capital of Canada is the confluence of three major rivers. So you have the Gatineau River, the Ottawa River, and the Rideau River. So this was significant because Ottawa was a logging city and the rivers were used to push the logs around.
Pulp and paper, baby.
Pulp and paper, baby. That's right. And it's funny because we fish right downtown Ottawa for musky, and you can look at the side imaging and there's logs everywhere. The bottom is completely littered with logs from those days.
So cool. Yeah. And so it's like the Ottawa, the Rideau, and those are kind of the two main opportunity, like big rivers in the Ottawa area.
As you move down the Ottawa, you can go up into the Gatineau, you can go up into the Rideau, you can go up into the smaller tributaries of those rivers and the Ottawa and also find opportunities for muskie. So there's just a tremendous amount of water
Yeah.
that you can go fishing in.
Yeah. No, 100%, man. It is really cool in that sense, the fishery, like having different rivers. It's a lot of rivers. There's like, of course, there's lakes too, but like there's a lot of rivers, like
a lot of rivers.
Yeah.
And one thing that makes Ottawa such a world-class muskie fishery is the amount of dams. There's so many dams in the Ottawa system, and you think, listening to all the petitions about removing dams for steelhead and migratory and anadromous fish, but the dams, muskie are much like steelhead and salmon, and they return to the same bays every year to spawn. And if water's too high or water's too low, they'll skip that year of spawning. So because of the number of dams and the flow control, they can really keep those water levels at regular, which allows fish to return to the same areas every year to spawn and not miss spawning opportunities. So that's a big reason why we have such a healthy population.
That's cool. I didn't even think of that. Yeah. Like the dam's actually helping in a way.
Yeah. Which is a little bit backwards compared to what you usually hear in fly fishing.
Yeah.
Cool. So then, we've got our, now that people know what Ottawa kind of is, it is in a valley, we have a lot of like the confluence of many rivers. We have big rivers, slow moving, fast moving water because it's such a large system. How did you start navigate once you had that moment in the float tube and all of a sudden you're all inspired to start fishing more often? Like, what was kind of the next phase of your own like personal journey of like figuring out, let's say, the Ottawa or the Rideau? Like, what was, now that you're inspired, you're starting to piece the puzzle together, what was like the next step into figuring out the Ottawa River
in terms of muskie?
In terms of muskie.
To me, I think the next piece was hours in and failure for a lot of those trips and a little bit of success. And muskie is tremendously hard to pattern because you don't get the feedback that you do from other species.
Right.
So a good angler is only having an encounter with a fish every 2-3 hours. An encounter could be a swirl, a flash, a follow, an eat that was missed. So it's tough compared to more plentiful species, more willing species to create these patterns that you can go back and replicate and use to find fish in the future. So there's a huge amount of hours in, and it's also why having mentorship and having other people in your network who are also fishing that you can meet up with and compare notes can be tremendously helpful.
Yeah, for sure. What is it about the fall that makes musky fishing so awesome, Josh?
That's a great question. The water temperatures are getting cold. The fish, they have a long winter ahead of them, and they're actively feeding. They're trying to put on that winter weight. They're trying to put on calories that'll get them through the winter. And they're not turning down opportunities that they might in the summer. It's a bit counterintuitive because you hear a lot of people say that warm water causes their metabolism to increase, so the fish eat more in warm water, which is true. But the warm water puts a lot more pressure on these fish. So warm temps, they're less likely to chase your orange and purple Buford. But in the fall, all they see is calories. And if that's moving nice and slow and gliding side to side, and it looks like something they can chase down and capture, it's tough for a big fish to turn that down. So in my opinion, fall is the best time to catch them. And it's closely followed by spring when they're coming off the spawn.
Right. Plus the cool air temperatures and stuff like that, just in terms of fish handling and catch and release, like that's got to be a bonus as well, right?
Yeah, catch and release is huge because there's only so many fish. And as anglers, there's more and more people who want to spend time in the water and enjoy the hobby. And we're an inclusive bunch. And climate change and habitat destruction is also reducing the amount of fish out there. So if you're going to participate in this game and catch these fish, you want to be confident that you're not having a detrimental impact in population in the future. That's something that I take a lot of pride in, and understanding the research and understanding the statistics and the water temperatures and the techniques we're using to make sure that these fish that we're putting back are okay and can be caught again and can continue to go on and spawn and have future generations of muskie for people to enjoy.
Yeah. Actually, we were talking about this the other day. Remember, you brought up Carleton University Cook Lab doing some research on muskie. We don't need exact figures or anything, but that's pretty cool. First of all, that Carleton University is doing research on muskie. Do you remember what that was all about? It's cool.
Yeah. So the one I mentioned was in 2009. It was Project Noble Beast. So there were 77 line caught fish. 30 of them were tagged. Prior to this study, they estimated that 30% of line caught muskie would die, which is a pretty high number.
Yeah, seriously.
And what was interesting about this study is that all 30 fish caught survived and went on to live short and long term. Of course, short term. Sorry, long term. They went on, and there was no mortality. And this study was actually updated. There was a new study that came out in 2023 by West Virginia University. This one dug in a little bit deeper. This one dug into the summer temps. There's a lot of people talking about how warm water over 80 is detrimental to fish. So they were catching fish in stocked ponds. They were stocked fish, and they were monitoring their behavior and survival after being line caught.
Yeah, that's cool.
And they found that there was an inverse relationship between, so as the water got warmer, mortality got much higher. But also they found that as the water got warmer, fish were likely to bite. So as those two curves were inversely related, it created a bit of a bell curve. Their results found that fish captured under 25 degrees, which would be about 77 Fahrenheit, had a 100% survival rate, which is exciting as an angler.
That is exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they found that actually 25 to 27, so that's 77 to 82, was the worst time to fish for them because the fish will still eat, but the fish don't have a survival rate. So during those temps, they found about 5 fish for every 100 rod hours was being killed. So it's incredibly important as an angler to be aware of these numbers, check the water temps, be aware of what you're fishing, and just take care of these fish because there's not many of them and they're spectacular.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're kind of, I mean, like, if you don't know what you're doing, like handling a muskie, you know, like getting a bass is one thing. It's like, okay, it comes off the hook pretty. So sometimes it just comes off the hook. A muskie, it's like, man, this is like a legit. I like how that project is called Project Noble Beast. This is a noble beast. Like, you can't just,
absolutely,
you know what I mean? You can't just catch and release a muskie. It's a little bit more involved than that.
Yeah, and you guys did a talk with Jordan Puckett earlier in the year, and I really admired what he said in that don't go out for these fish without being prepared. Release tools are incredibly important. Everything from a big net to give that fish room to recover, jaw spreaders, wire cutters.
All that kind of stuff. I loved
big pliers.
I loved that Jordan was saying that too, like, and because it's like, what a great message. Because there's a lot of people that maybe haven't fished muskie before that are listening to this and are like, I'm gonna go do it. So be prepared, because it's a serious business, you know.
Yeah, but it's a tremendous fish to catch, and I believe that a muskie on the fly is one of the most challenging freshwater angling experiences in North America. Like that's a huge achievement. That's a tough endeavor to accomplishment. A tough endeavor to achieve.
Yeah.
So to get one is really something.
I'm with you, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aldo?
While we're on the subject of like fish handling and stuff, is there like a moment where you... Oh, hi, Bree.
Hi, Bree. Hi, Bree. Oh, she ducked. If you're watching on YouTube,
she ducked. That's amazing. With we hear all the time, like hoot owl, or like it's pretty, people are pretty aware of like temperatures in which to stop fishing for trout. Josh, is there ever a time in which, we mentioned that 77 degrees, 80 degrees, is there a time in which, like, for you, there's a cutoff temperature where you'd be like, you know what, maybe we should, pack it in or wait until the temps drop a bit?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's something I struggle with a lot as a guide. The summer is the best time to be on the water. It's the most comfortable. It's beautiful.
And like you said, there's a correlation between warmer temps and their metabolism going up. So it's like, shit, like they're,
So it's a double-edged sword. There's two different temps and people get confused. So the previous was 80 degrees surface temperature. The previous study I mentioned by West Virginia University was 77. That was in ponds from 1.5 to 4.5 meters deep. So they took temperatures from all over and took an average. So you got to measure a bit deeper than surface. But over 77, which I think getting up there 79 on surface becomes a concern. And I do tell people when waters get up there, we're looking at either a rain check or maybe we're going to switch gears and do some smallmouth or do some gar.
Bass check?
Yeah. But another interesting fact from the study, which makes this point easier to sell, is that they also found that average water temps above 77 had a 4 times lower catch rate. So these fish don't want to eat big lures or flies in warm water.
Okay. No.
Yeah. Maybe they're, yeah. Well, that's good to know because, yeah, it's different as a guide, right? Because like we were saying, these fish are a serious business and you turned it into a business. Like how'd you get into guiding? How did the guiding thing start?
That's a good question too. It was during COVID and I have a career working in restaurants and fine dining, so that was closed. And I was picking up a boat. I was a passionate musky angler, and I was doing some charters on the side for my friend Colin Huff. It's a really big tournament angler, great guy in Ottawa. I was doing some charters for the Musky factory, and it hit a point where I thought, I love doing this. This is a lot of fun. It's a huge source of passion for me. I should just use this downtime to create my own little thing.
Yeah. That's fun, man.
I had a question like flowing from that. When you were starting to figure out, again, flow tube, Rideau River, whatever, roughly what time was this? Like, and why I'm asking that is like, now there's musky gear, there's musky flies, there's a lot of literature on musky. Like, back then, especially in the Ottawa Valley, especially with, the fly shops closing, like, was it hard to find musky specific gear, or, what kind of time was this? Was this pre, specialized gear, or
this was 2018, 2017 when I started fishing them, and then was 2020 when I started subcontracting the guide dates and started getting the ball in motion for Courage. So it was definitely more challenging then. There's so many more resources now between YouTube and Musky Fool is a tremendous shop, a one-stop shop for musky fly fishing, which is pretty cool. They've done a terrific job in making that accessible for people. But it wasn't the easiest at that time, and certainly the guys before me, it was not any easier for them either.
Why'd you call it Courage?
That's a good question. My grandmother from Newfoundland, my grandmother and my grandfather taught me how to fly fish, and Courage was her maiden name.
Oh, cool! What a cool maiden name.
Yeah, she was badass. Yeah, she would steal all of her brother's flies and go catch brook trout. Grew up in Outport, Port Union, Newfoundland. She'd tell me stories. Her father worked at the hydro generating facility, so there was this big dam and turbines, and the salmon guys would go and they'd stack up on the still pool, and then she'd walk down late after breakfast, sleeping in, and he'd switch around the turbine so she was on, all the salmon would move, and she was on the perfect pool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Courage. It's a great play. That's a great way to get your name. And you fished a lot with your grandparents?
They introduced me to it. They took me on my first trip to Newfoundland. Grandfather put me on my first trout on the fly. Yeah, my grandmother and grandfather on my mom's side were a huge influence on the fly fishing on Newfoundland. I think something gets into your blood about this wonder about being around water and the mystery, what's underneath it. It seems like she just has this significant role in it. The last talk I did with Isaac Walton was on the day she died. And today, November 7th, is her birthday. So anytime I do anything public with Courage, it's always on a significant day for her, which is kind of weird at this time around.
Dude, this was just like, we're like,
on November 7th?
We're like, how about next Thursday? You're like, yeah, sure. That's crazy.
I didn't even think about it till after the fact.
Wow, weird.
But yeah, it's weird. She's got her hands in it somehow.
Yeah, she sounds like she was really cool. I mean, it's awesome that like she was fly fishing in back then too. It was definitely a male dominated thing, right? Fly fishing, and she was like all in there. That's so cool. Yeah,
she described herself as a tomboy. She told me stories that everyone thought she was crazy because she wouldn't bonk the fish with a rock. She'd bite their heads.
Oh my God, that's so hardcore.
Yeah, her brothers thought she was nuts.
Newfoundland, eh?
Yeah, crazy place.
Oh man, Courage.
Yeah, but that's so interesting. That's so weird. It's like that. I don't know if you guys didn't. I don't know. It's not that out there, but like the idea of synchronicity, where it's like, I think it's something like concept of like events that coincide in time and they appear related, but you can't like pinpoint like the cause. So meaning like for us, we're all into fly fishing. Your grandmother had, you know, some significance in your fly fishing career. Then fly fishing things keep happening on dates related to her. That's synchronicity.
That's cool.
Interesting.
It's a little out there. Carl Jung is a you know, psychiatrist,
Trippy.
psychologist. He coined the term, but it just keeps happening in my life too. So I'm like, just keep noticing it more. So it's interesting that you brought that up.
So give me an example, although, of synchronicity in your life.
So let's say we've now talked to, you know, I've now talked to you. We're now talking. It's November 7th. It has something to do with, you know, your grandmother and fly fishing. You know, without trying to, this is when we booked that, this podcast, right? You know, let's say I leave, we finish this, I leave, I'm in Vancouver right now. I leave, I go to the fly shop, and then I'll see a sign for something like courage related. And I'll be like, oh, it's related. It has no cause to be related, but from my own personal experience, it's related.
Yeah.
Like I'll walk in and like, it could be something like where I walk into the fly shop and someone's wearing your merch. And I'll be like, okay, that's weird. You know, like why is somebody in Vancouver wearing your merch? I just talked to you today. Which also happens to be your grandmother's birthday, which also happens to be, you know.
If that happens and you see someone, you go out now and see someone in Josh's shirt, we're giving them $1,000.
Can I get the $1,000?
There's one guy in Vancouver, who owns a Courage T-shirt. So,
so it's possible.
It's possible.
He's going to be seeing dollar signs.
This would be
my God.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's a fly shop.
Although you said there was a theme of this occurring in the past for you.
Oh yeah, in my everyday life, like this is an unfortunate example, but we were I was on a patio a couple weeks ago. We're discussing like the whole P. Diddy thing happening, and then somebody drove by and was like playing one of his songs like at an impossibly loud level, and we're like, that's
ballsy
really weird,
song
you know?
choice.
Ballsy song choice these days, but it's just like, you know, again, they're for your own life experience, they're correlated, but they're not, you know, there's no causation for it.
Also, the word also kind of sounds like Multiplicity, which is a film with Michael Keaton that I watched recently.
And Michael Keaton fly fishes.
And Michael Keaton fly fishes. So, and we're here talking about fly fishing.
Cool. But yeah, back to, okay, so you've, you know, you figured out the fly fishing, you're starting to guide. You know, it's been a couple of years in guiding. It's cool that you're in restaurants. I'm from, you know, that's my background as well. What river are you currently enjoying guiding the most? Like when what gets you fired up? Are you like when you're launching at the Ottawa, or when you're launching at like the Rideau or something like that? Like or maybe the better question is, let's say when you had Nick and Justin, what were you excited to show them?
That's
Southern Ontario boys.
As well.
Like,
you got loaded with good questions.
Well, we never get to talk about Ottawa, and like now I'm starting. You know, I'm like almost like guilt tripping myself. That I'm just like, why haven't we talked about Ottawa more? Like Mitch and I talk about like, oh, we go bass fishing, blah, blah, blah. But like really diving in about like talking about the Ottawa fishery. Like we should really talk about it more because it is incredible. So yeah, like what gets you excited about showing people who don't fish there every day?
So I had this dream of them coming that I thought about long before they came. That I was going to get them out. I was going to take them to the Rideau or the Madawaska. I was going to get them a nice high 30, low 40 fish, scratch that itch, and then we were going to go to the Ottawa. And the Ottawa is exciting to me. It's not for the average angler because it's your highest chance at a 50, but it's your highest chance of fishing all day and not seeing anything. Yeah. So I always tell people we need to make sense and make it clear of what you're after. If you're after a trophy muskie, we're going to go in the Ottawa. But if you want some learning opportunities and action and shots you can blow, Ottawa's not the place for you.
Yeah,
because it's big water and it's mean. And the fish are mean. They live in significantly more current. They're stronger. They're more powerful. These fish will school you.
Yeah.
So for the right angler who's in for that challenge, it's an exciting place to fish. But you have to know the risk you're getting into. And you can't leave a trip from the Ottawa not seeing anything, thinking, I would have got 230s on the Rideau.
Right.
So that's a tough decision. But unfortunately, when the boys came up, it was out of play. A lot of rain, a lot of mud, not favorable on the fly. So we pivoted. Justin still hooked high 40s, probably a 50. We didn't see
Those
it.
are beautiful fish.
But that's as much as you can ask for in musky fishing. Landed a good one, saw an even bigger one, something to dream about, something to come back for. To me, that's a perfect trip.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys can attest to this, but to me, sometimes it's the fish that don't quite make it to the net that end up more memorable.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Actually, almost 100% of the time. Like, you know, Mitch and I just went out with Jordan, and I don't think Adis is going to forget that muskie anytime soon. The one that he lost at the boat.
Yeah.
You know, so
no, exactly. Yeah. 100%.
yeah, that's 100% it. Are there, you know, if I'm assuming you've muskie fished in some other places, are there unique elements to, you know, targeting the muskie in the Ottawa? I'm assuming there are, but like, what maybe are some of those things? Like, are there certain colors you find work better in this region versus others, or, you know, different techniques?
I flip flop with this. Some days I think your color and your fly doesn't matter. It's all about picking one and making good presentations until something happens. I think these fish are everywhere and they eat when they want to eat. But other days I'll fish orange all day. I'll change to black, and halfway through the next spot I'll hook a fish. And then that makes you wonder, maybe that color change did do something.
Yeah. It's a good point. It can drive you kind of crazy thinking about, you know, I mean, some people do flip back and forth all day. You know, it's what setups are you running typically? Like, what kind of rods are we talking about? What's your go-to?
My go-to when I'm guiding is 11 weights. I think 11 weights are the sweet spot. Anyone looking to get into musky, looking into buying a rod, 11 is the sweet spot. 10 weights can do it 90% of the time, but once you get into the fall, once you get into the wind, once you get into heavier S10 lines, big flies, you'll start to wish you had something heavier.
Yeah.
12 weights can do it all and more, but there starts to be a change between 11 and 12. You get more into fighting rods, lifting rods that are less pleasant to blind cast for a 9-hour day.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think 9 is the sweet spot. It can do what you need to do. It's still enjoyable to cast for an extended period of time. In terms of lines, floating, intermediate, Sync 5, Sync 10 are the 4 choices that I run with, depending on the structure I'm fishing, the time of year, how deep I want to get. The fly choice, as you progress in a year, the flies just seem to get bigger and bigger until the fall when you max them out. But generally speaking, I'm running much bigger flies in the fall. I got a couple here.
Oh yeah, show and tell.
So
show and tell.
A couple I tied this week. I don't know if I can focus on these.
Oh, sick!
Oh, dude, that game changer's
awesome.
So I got a game changer. I got a wiggle tail with a Buford head. This would be a lighter fly. This would be a heavier fly. They're both.
Oh my God, Josh, those are beautiful.
Gray flies.
Yeah. So the flies are big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, if you're listening to this just on Spotify or iTunes or something like that, might want to go over to YouTube for this segment.
Check that part out.
Just to check out those flies. Those were pretty nice.
Nice flies, man. Yeah.
Sync 10 is admittedly something I've never used, at least for predator fishing.
No.
Sync 10 gets you down there.
Oh yeah. I bet.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time we're fishing sunken structure and bridge pilings and bait fish balls that are 15 feet down, and you want to get that fly. You want to get the fly through the middle of it as quickly as possible, and you want to pick that up and cast again. So it has its time and place, but
yeah, plus currents.
Current is a big issue. It changes a little bit too. The more natural flies with the deer hair hold a lot of water, so they take a little bit more to get down. Whereas the synthetic stuff, like the game changers, they don't need as much weight to pull them underwater.
Yeah, right to the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it.
But it comes back to, and you talked about this, the fly selection. It's tough to pattern with musky, and it's self-perpetuating because what you're casting is what you're going to be catching fish on. It doesn't mean it's the best thing. It means it's working because that's what you're doing.
Yeah, that's the frustrating part of it.
Yeah, because you're right. That feedback loop isn't very big, right? So you're just like, of course it's eating it. It's in the water. But is it really what it wants to be eating? Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah. You fish 3 days, you've caught 2 fish on orange. Is orange working? Or maybe if you moved to green, you would have caught 5. Who knows?
Right.
Yeah. If you had to pick one musky fly to fish all fall for the rest of the fall here, what would you pick? Let's say you're forced to pick something.
I think it would be a Buford.
Yeah. Big old Buford.
Big old Buford, big scruffy head, not too trimmed, a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
some feathers.
Yeah. Buford on a sinking line is just like, it's such an epic fly. Like, it's such a well-designed fly, it moves so much water. I wanted to show you something. I was actually at the Pacific Angler yesterday, and I saw these flies, and I was like, I know they're not using them for pike around here or musky or anything, but I was like, I think what they're using them for is coho or something, but they're tube flies.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's cool.
But they're tubes.
The tube.
That's kind of cool. I was like, I'm buying some of these for sure. It was cool, actually. Shout out to the Pacific Angler really quickly. Like, a lot of their flies are all tied by local tires. They've got some factory flies, but they have I think about like a handful of tires that stock all of their all the fly boxes, which is really, really, really rad. And I got these 2 yesterday. They were the last 2. I was like, okay, well, I'm gotta buy these. It's because they're so odd. They might be a little small for musky, and if you're only listening on again iTunes or Spotify, basically it's a giant chunk of foam, and then like a big cylinder of foam. There's not even any
like
eyes.
A marshmallow.
Yeah, it looks like a marshmallow with feathers out the back, but there's a tube fly, which is really, really cool, and I'm kind of stoked to see when a pike is going to hit this. Not if, when, because that's going to happen.
I feel like a Rito muskie would hit that. No,
no, it's just kind of small though. No, I don't know.
But that thing would move water if you give it a good plop.
Yeah,
look at the head. Look at the head on that thing.
I know, they're wild. They're kind of interesting. I was like, okay, I gotta buy these.
Yeah, and a tube too, so it sits kind of in the water. Yeah, that's cool.
I'd be throwing that everywhere on pike. It's funny in musky fishing. When I guided for the Musky factory, I worked with a guy who's now a really good friend of mine. We fish together all the time. His name is Mike Cadora. And Mike always talked about PMA, which was positive musky attitude. He said, you've got to have a good attitude to catch these fish. And it's so funny because last week, a friend of mine, Scott Barham, is in Southern Ontario. He's coming to fish with me next week. He ties commercially. If you need some musky flies, great guy to reach out to. But he hit me up, got off the river, having a beer. He said, how did the fishing go? And I said, not great. We had some chances. They didn't stick. It was windy. He said, Josh, maybe if you change that attitude around, you'll get them tomorrow. And then the next day, we touched base again. I told him we got 2. And then he said, well, I'm glad you changed your attitude.
That's good, right?
That's wild. Yeah. Positive musky attitude. PMA, everybody.
Baby.
PMA, baby.
PMA. There's a t-shirt. Love that. Okay, Josh, do you got any, you got like a cool musky, like what's a cool musky story? You got any cool musky stories you want to share potentially?
Outside of your first musky, which is a pretty cool story.
It's a great story, man. Any others?
I got 2 good ones that come to mind.
Okay.
Once, when I was subcontracting days, I had a half day. And this was before I got to have all the dialogue leading up to the charter. So I would just show up, pick up the guest, make the best of those 5 hours, and then that would be it. So the individual at this time showed up. He brought out a brand new 10 weight and started taking the plastic off the rod. And I said, cool rod, Echo. They make awesome rods. I sling some of those myself. great choice. And he said, yeah, it's my first fly rod. I said to him, you've done some casting in the past, though. Caught some smallmouth or some trout? He said, no, this is my first dive into fly fishing. And I said to him, you know, it's a shame that we didn't talk beforehand, but Musky is kind of the final boss. I don't know. I don't know if this is where you want to start or if this is going to be enjoyable for you, but I've got some conventional rods in the truck. Why don't we do conventional for the first 4 hours, give you a really good shot, and then at the end, maybe we could go to a back bay and I could give you a quick casting lesson that you could use to start your journey into fly fishing.
Yeah.
And he said, no. He said, you know what? I'm an all-in kind of guy, and if I want to do it, I want to do it the hardest way.
Okay.
That's a tough thing to turn down, and it's his day. So I said, let's go. Let's give her. This was on the lower Ottawa.
Yeah.
So gave him a bit of a casting lesson. He could maybe get half the sinking tip out. So, 9 foot leader for 25 foot casts. Gave him one of the smallest flies that I had. Then, about halfway through the day, he said, "I'm hooked up." And I thought to myself, "Thank goodness, he's gonna get a bass, or he's gonna get a little pike, and we're gonna have a fish in the boat. It's gonna knock off the skunk. He's gonna feel good."
Yeah.
And then PMA for the rest of the day. But that fish rolled. Oh my goodness, boys! It was huge. He landed it. It was a 48.
Oh my god!
Yes, 3 hours into fly fishing.
A 48.
A 48.
Oh my
I'll
god!
send you guys a photo. You can maybe put it in, edit it in when people watch this.
We will for sure.
Crazy.
Oh yeah, with a 48. The guy went all in. Bought a boat the next year.
Oh shit!
He's like, I'm done. I'm in.
That's it. Quit his job. He's like,
this is a nice fly. He bought some flies for me.
Dang. Man, that must have been a hell of a moment for that guy too. Like he probably, I mean, geez, to be part of that, you know, and actually just make it happen. That's so cool.
Yeah. So, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, your first muskie is your hardest or your easiest.
Right. Yeah. He hasn't caught shit since.
Maybe not.
He's got loans on boats and all kinds of stuff. Awesome.
I'd be willing to bet he hasn't topped that one yet.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, you said you had a second one too. Second story?
Oh, so another day.
Yeah.
My mom loves fly fishing. She's the biggest supporter of me. So grateful. She loves coming out on the boat. She'll throw conventional. She likes. She's really good at the jerk baits, working the Suix.
Yep.
On smaller rivers, she'll throw a fly rod. So this was pretty early. This was 2017, 2018. Pretty new to it. Long before any guiding. We were out fishing together, and hadn't seen much for the entire day. The sun was going down, and I hooked my first 50. And it was crazy. There was baits tangled in the net. She was trying to get the net out, and the fish was going everywhere. It was crazy. We got those baits out. She netted it like a pro, and we were hooting and hollering. It was one of probably the most memorable musky moments for me. Getting my first 50, having my mom in the boat with me netting it. She knew what a 50 was, and she knew based on my reaction that we hit that milestone. So it was pretty sweet.
Dude, that's awesome. With your mom netting your 50-inch muskie.
My first 50, yeah. Oh, I got one more story for you guys.
Yeah. 50-inch muskie is just so insane to me.
One more story, and this one, no one will believe. When I worked in the restaurant industry, I was working at a restaurant in Little Italy.
Yeah.
Really great higher end creek place. There was a guy in the kitchen. He wasn't an angler, but he loved being on the water, so I'd let him come out with me. I'd throw flies, he'd throw gear behind me.
Yeah.
It was great to have a company on the boat. Musky fishing is hard, and it's nice to have someone to spend the experience with, and it's nice to have the second set of hands to net fish, get photos. So when I'm on a day off, if someone wants to come and they have good energy, they're more than welcome to join me. So we were out in the Ottawa, I think it was July. It was early July, first week of July. And we were fishing this little shallow back bay. And this would be my next biggest fish. It was a PB. This one was a 53.
Christ.
And then he scooped it up. He netted it. I'm freaking out. I'm like, second 50 biggest muskie. This is the best day.
Yeah.
And it's scary releasing these fish in the summer. Sometimes they take 15, 20 minutes to revive it. And you really want to make sure these fish can hold themselves upright, because what will happen is they'll swim down deep, they'll tuck themselves in weeds, and they'll not stay upright, and then they can't process the oxygen dissolved in the water, which will lead to mortality. So you need to hold them, you need to baby them, you need to let them regain their strength from the fight till they can confidently stay upright and swim away. So I'm holding this fish, reviving it, and he says, "Josh, I see one." What do you mean you see one? He said, "I see one." I said, "Cast at it." So he casted at it. He hooked up. And then in the chaos, mine started to kick, swam off. I grabbed the net, scooped up his, and his was a 47.5. So we doubled up on over 100 inches of muskie in the boat.
You did it. The Century Club, 100 inches of fish.
I'll never do it again. And I lie in bed. Thinking I should have thrown mine back in the net, put his in the net, and we should have called the other boat over to get a double photo, because people are going to think this guy's full of beans talking about 100 inches of muskie in the boat at the same time. But Scout's honor, it happened, and it will never happen again.
Yeah. Until we come down. No, yeah. I feel like Ottawa's the place to have those stories, like it's I'm doing something with this musky angler right now, and he always keeps saying, if you want to find big fish, you got to go where big fish are, and I think that's always I've heard Ottawa and musky, it's like that's where the big musky are. So to have 200 inches of musky in a day, I buy it. I believe you.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Mitch.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I love that.
Make me wonder how far I can push my stories the next time you have me.
That's right. Yeah, that's how I thought you were going to start it. Like, I thought you were going to say one fish was 100 inches. That's when I got my first 80 incher. I'm like, all right, let's go.
There's big fish in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, Mitch's Fishy's 5 time, everybody? Mitch's Fishy's 5 time. Mitch's Fishy's 5, Josh, of course, is the same 5 questions we ask every guest on the end of every episode. And I'm going to ask them to you right now. Now, the first of the Mitch's Fishy's 5 is, if you had a favorite fish, what would it be? What's your favorite fish and why?
It'd be musky.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, why? What about musky?
David Sullivan, who was a mentor to me, told me when I got into this, he said, these fish have a way of wriggling into the deepest parts of your thoughts and your brain. And he couldn't be further from the truth. And you think a guy who's had hundreds of muskie in a boat on the fly would get bored of it and start thinking about other things. But I lie in bed thinking about these fish. I lie in bed thinking about how I can be more effective on the water, how I can change my presentation, how I can change my flies to make them more castable, to get other people on fish. There's something about these fish that take over your thoughts. And I love angling for them.
Yeah, there's like an obsession to muskie, it's like unlike anything else.
And they're big, and they're impressive, and they're really hard to catch.
Yeah. All the right ingredients. I love it.
The perfect storm.
Perfect storm. Okay, number 2 is if you could fish anywhere in the world right now, assuming it's going to be amazing conditions and you're going to have a great trip, where would you go and why?
So to answer that question, I think about the future. And I think 40 years down the road, and now I'm in my 70s and I might not be able-bodied, able to fish. And it's fall and I'm staring out the window and I'm looking at the leaves fall. And I'm thinking about how much I loved angling in the fall and how it was the best time for all these species and the memories and the achievement and the people I've met throughout my fly fishing journey and the places I've been. And when I put myself in this position, I don't think if I did not have the opportunity to do GTs in Africa or peacock bass in Brazil, I don't think that would really disappoint me. But I do think there's so many truly wild places here in Canada that I love to explore. And I think not making somewhat of a strong effort to get to some of these places that really call to me, that's something that I would regret. So it might sound silly, but my top destinations are here in Canada. I mentioned to you guys I had roots in Newfoundland, and Labrador is such a terrific fishery. The Mackenzie River would probably be my first landlocked salmon, brook trout, get into the slacker water, and there's big pike. The Pinware would be a second. Atlantic salmon fishing, coastal Labrador. And then you just start to move to West Canada. There's the Lake of the Woods, which I haven't been yet. There's the Cree River in Saskatchewan. A friend of mine just went there, fished 5 days. They had 40 pike over 40 inches. That's crazy.
That is crazy. Yeah, Saskatchewan's awesome looking.
And then that doesn't even touch northern BC and the steelhead they have out there. But
yeah,
my heart is completely in Canada, and Labrador is somewhere I'd really like to get to. And it's feasible too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a great answer. I mean, pretty sure that was John Gierak's answer as well. John, obviously, rest in peace. But he talked about fishing out there as being the greatest thing in the world. He was like, obviously we've seen pictures and stuff. It's unbelievable. That would be such a cool destination. I like that.
And he loved Musky too.
Oh yeah, I know. He was hooked by the Musky. I love it. Okay, number 3, Mitch Fishy's 5 is, what is your best fishing memory or one of your favorite fishing memories from all time?
One of my favorite fishing memories, I think a great fishing memory has to do with the ingredients. And I think a big fish and the hero moment can't be everything. I think there has to be more to it than that. When I was 7 years old, my father and my grandfather would take my brother and I on a camping trip for a couple days. And always during that camping trip, we'd make an effort to do one serious fishing day. We'd go rent a boat somewhere. We'd check out a new lake. So this particular time, I was 7. We were camping in Bon Echo. I don't even remember the lake, but rented a boat. And it was a lights out day. My brother got his first walleye, and it was huge. I had a PB pike. And at that time, my mindset was a little bit different on conservation. We didn't have a camera in the boat, so I was like, let's bonk these, eat them for dinner.
Yeah.
Take them back, and the camera's in the car. We'll get a photo for Mom. It's perfect.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. Dad and Grandpa were stoked on these big fish.
Yeah.
And my grandfather had a stringer, so we put the fish on the stringer so we could keep fishing, keep them cold for dinner.
Yeah.
And then starts getting dark. We motor back to the lodge, and he forgot to take the stringer out, so we turned the fish into mincemeat.
Oh no!
And the 4 of us just laughed, and we thought it was funny. And there was it was a story that we teased him about until he died. Remember the time he turned dinner into mincemeat? And I think it's the values of fishing with people you love and a little bit of silliness and achievements, but more so the achievements to be shared with the people in the moment and those you love, and not necessarily hero shots for Instagram. And it sounds like a silly story, but it's something, just the people there and the lightheartedness and the humor and the mistakes that we laughed about for 20, 30 more years was something really special.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's super special. I love that area too. Bonico, it's great.
Oh, yeah. And the Ottawa that way is pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Have you ever gone through, they call it the Steamboat Channel?
Maybe. That sounds kind of familiar.
It's just up from the Bonnechere River where it dumps in the Ottawa, and it gets really tight. And there's all sorts of current.
Yeah. Yeah. I have been up there, Golden Lake area. There's like this weird dam, and not dam, but like kind of a lock thing going on. It's so awesome.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite part of the Ottawa River. It's spectacular there.
Unreal, yeah. Okay, number 4. Why do you fly fish? Why do you keep going back out there?
I fly fish because I think it's good for your soul. I mentioned to you both before, I think there's something in my blood about my roots in Atlantic Canada and the wonders of the water. I got hooked on fly fishing because technicality of it, the drive, the creativity, the motivation for continuous learning, for improvement. And that's evolved as I have done it more. And now it's, to me, changed a bit more oriented towards community and memories and time on the water. But ultimately, I think fly fishing gives us these emotions that we don't frequently experience in our adult life. They're somewhat reminiscent to being a child, the hope and the wonder and the excitement and what's around the next corner of the river and what the next cast might yield and what's at the bottom of this mysterious pool. And I think those are exciting emotions to feel and something worth cherishing. So I think the combination of all those things, the relationships and the challenges and the positive emotions, makes this fly fishing in time on the water something so special, that something worth cherishing.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed. Okay, number 5, Mitch's Fishy's 5. Last Mitch's Fishy's 5 is, what fly pattern represents you best and why? If you were a fly, what would you be?
Squirmy worm. Next question.
What?
I'm teasing.
Gosh, no!
I was like, that's fucking sick.
That would be awesome. Too funny, man.
Don Gapin, 1936, Minnesota, came up with the muddler minnow.
There you go.
Yes.
Came up with the muddler minnow for big brook trout and Nipigon. The idea of big spun bucktail head, push water, calling those predatory fish. If you look at these musky flies, that's what these things are based on.
Yeah.
These huge heads push water, the fish feel it in their lateral lines.
Yeah.
And that laid the groundwork for what I'm doing. And also muddlers minnows trace back to Atlantic Canada. A lot of anglers use them on a dry line for sea-run brook trout, sea-run browns. So like me, he's got some roots out east. And I think it's important to understand kind of the history of what you're doing. And if you listen to Gunnar Brammer talk, he talks about musky flies. The concept is like a semi-truck locking up the brakes and the back kicks out.
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
That's what we're doing with musky flies. It's a water-resistant head. It's a hydrodynamic back. But that big pushing head that you find in the muddler minnow is the foundation. So that particular fly speaks to me in that it evolved into what we're doing today.
I love that. Muddler minnow.
Love it.
Love that. Also, Brammer's got some Rio flies, that musky streamer that we have, Aldo.
The imposter?
Yeah, the imposter is so rad. It's like one of my favorite flies now. Oh my God. It's such a sick fly, dude. Like, that's all I fished like for pike and muskie this summer. You know, it was just the Brammers imposter, and it smoked them. Like the pike loved it up at Old Post Lodge.
You had some great moments with that fly.
I like that fly. I like that fly a lot.
Where was this, Mitch?
The Brammers imposter, Old Post Lodge is Northern Ontario, kind of like near Pickle Lake.
Cool.
Yeah, on Lake St. Joseph.
That's
what
right.
It's called. Yeah. Cool lake, really big pike. No muskie, so you'd hate it. But hey, rock and roll.
I like pike.
Of course.
No, you'd hate it. Okay, listen to Mitch. You'd
Don't
fucking
go
hate it.
there.
Don't go there.
Yeah, you don't want to go. You don't want to go.
Most
Amazing
more fun. They'll come back.
Oh yeah. Because it's a good point actually. Yeah, that was my experience with muskie this summer, Josh. With Jordan, not perfecting the figure 8 yet, and watching those muskie just say peace, and I'm like, no,
No.
Yeah, but anyways, I love the muddler minnow. I love all those answers. Josh, it's been awesome just chatting, man. Like this has been a really fun show, and before we do part ways, love to have you just kind of plug where people can find you and how can they book you to go out muskie fishing, and what's your fall looking like? You know, are you booked up? All that stuff.
Wicked website, by the way. Really good looking website.
Really
Oh,
nice.
thanks. My brother did some work in web design and helped me out a lot with that. But we're getting to the end of fall here. Temps are getting cold.
Yeah.
But we might be able to slot something in last minute. I have a couple guys who'll do charters with me as well. But things get hot again around opener. Like I said, I'm conscious about those water temps, so we have a couple good weeks. Pump the brakes for the summer and really focus on learn to fly fish, which are blasts, get people started. Focus on the smallmouth bass, and then end of September, muskie really picks up again, and we'll get out after that. But you can find me at the website, courageflyfishing.com. I try to be as active as possible on Instagram, sharing some photos of some guiding, some of my own fishing with friends and family. Like I said, I love to talk fly fishing, love to share, love to bounce ideas off other passionate anglers. If you want to jump into my messages, I'll talk your ear off about muskie. But it's a small community, and we're here for each other, and you can't do it all on your own.
Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah, we'll put links to all that stuff in the show notes too, of course. And this, I hope, won't be the last time Josh is on SoFly. I hope.
Maybe if my camera doesn't stop dying.
No, you look great. You look great.
You know what? We'll do it in person or something next time. We'll figure out something. So there's no.
Yeah, Josh,
technical
thanks
stuff.
so much. Like,
Yeah,
I
it's been
mean, like
awesome.
I said, like it was. I was admittedly a bit embarrassed to, learn about you so late. But I'm glad you're on the show, and I'm happy to talk about Ottawa. It fills my soul with joy. It's almost actually a parting thought. It's almost incredible that there is fly fishing in Ottawa. I know it's such a random thing to say, but like, growing up in Ottawa, looking at these Orvis catalogs chock full of Montana imagery, you're like, it's almost wild that there's such a big community in Ottawa of really, important Canadian fly anglers that have really, pushed the whole Canadian community. And there's a really great base for people in Ottawa of very talented anglers like yourself, like Colin, like Jack, that, to learn from. And I think it's rad that it seems like the Ottawa fly fishers are reinvigorated with some energy, and I just love to see that. It's great. Now it just needs a fly shop or something.
Yeah, what the Ottawa fly fishers are doing is tremendous, and the weekly fishing nights, and mentioned this before, but just the opportunity of spending time with like-minded people and community is important. And Ottawa people don't think of it as a fly fishing city, but if you can get your head around the fact that it's all warm water, you've got some tremendous opportunities. Very plentiful.
Yeah, there you go. Go out with Josh. Hire him for a day on the water and have a blast. Josh, thank you so much again for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, it's an honor. Thank you for having me.
And there it is. You were holding your breath that whole time?
Yeah.
Wow. It was like an hour.
I'd like to say it's a record, but I've held my breath for longer.
Really?
waiting for Yilma to show up for fishing.
What?
What?
I love a good Yelma Slam
Especially when he's not around to defend
post departure. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Almost a year now. Yelma.
Oh, Yilma. I wonder what he's doing
I hope he's good, whatever he's at, wherever he is out there.
I wonder what he's doing right now. He's just asleep.
Sleeping. So what's going on?
Well, you mentioned in the opening of the show, and obviously we just talked to Josh for an hour, but we got to spend some time on the water with Josh, and we had a 2-boat float.
It was a great day,
and doing some Great Lakes steelheading with our buddy Matt Martin and our buddy Nick Salmographer. Dude, you landed a beauty.
It was a nice fish, very nice fish,
and in some in-betweeny water, which is always fun because
yeah.
Something about hooking a 7-pound fish when you're rowing at the same time is
8 pound.
9, 10, 20.
Yeah, I know. Like, don't skip the water that is giving you a little bit of a,
Yeah, it's just a little narrow little.
Yeah, the fellas did, and
they skipped right
when
over.
They heard us hooting and hollering. They were kicking themselves.
Yes, they were, baby.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a good day.
And it was fun meeting Josh in person. And then also he got into some fish, which was always awesome.
Yeah, he got a nice one. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're in the full, it's December 1st. We got 31 days of madness left.
Yeah.
Before most of our rivers close. And we really haven't had that much rain. So I'm hoping December... The rains of storage have started, and I'm hoping December is going to be a fishy month.
It'd be cool to just get a big old dump of rain, and because we are in full swing of things.
Yo, what a pun!
It's been fun, man. That was a good day.
Ada's got one on the swing the other day.
He did indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was on the swing. Yeah.
Yeah, that
was awesome. I was really happy about that.
For him?
Yeah, because he's been pushing. He's been pushing to get one on the swing this year, given the conditions, finding the right spot to go near us. Not the easiest thing, but he did it, and he it was a nice fish.
Yeah,
and that's kind of his thing, because that day was like the program was squirms and eggs. Let's be real. So I think he enjoys the swing because his first steelhead was on the swing, so he's been hooked by it ever since.
Yeah, true.
He's gotten a couple fish on the swing since then, but it's sparing compared to the egg and squirm. The squirm does not. Squirm produces.
The squirm produces, yeah. In squirm we trust, for sure.
That's what I got him on. I got mine on just a worm, just a happy little worm floating down the river.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're all on the wait list. We've been converted.
Weightless worms, yeah, on that river.
Awesome. Yeah, on that river, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But that was nice. And then I was out last week with a couple pals. Nick, who owns the event space we do our Soto's fundraiser, and his buddy and my buddy Oscar. And Oscar on his second cast got his first steelhead ever, and it was
his first steelhead?
Almost 10 pounds.
That was his first steelhead?
Yeah, dude.
That was a nice fish.
Oh yeah, it was a beautiful fish. He was like,
maybe I won't.
I think I'm, his second drift. He's like, I think I'm on. I was like, okay. And then his line just started running. I was like, yeah, you're on.
Dang, man, that was a really nice fish.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was his first one.
At one point, it just kind of stopped moving, and I got worried that it had wrapped itself. And he's like, "Oh, it's not moving. It's not moving." And I was like, "Oh, just here, hand me the rod."
Yeah.
And it was just moving really slowly. I was like, "No, you're on." And then once I felt the weight of it, because it's his first steelhead ever, I wasn't sure what it was actually. I was like, "Oh man, this is a pretty serious fish." So I rode to the bank and anchored and got out to land it. It was stressful. I really did. Once I saw the fish, I didn't want to blow the net job. It was stressful. It was a big fish.
Especially it's his first steelhead too, right?
Yeah.
Dang.
And we got you've got a few others that day too. Well, and Tim was with us, and
he got a nice little guy.
He got a couple guys, yeah.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, he got 4, landed 2.
Good. Wow, nice job, Tim. He was in the Watermaster?
Yeah.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Friggin' right, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a nice that that river, like what we do, what we float. It's fun. It's a fun little day. I like it. But then Josh, in between all of that, has been posting pictures on Instagram and
Of Musky.
sending shots, of fish that he's been getting ever since we did this podcast with him a few weeks ago. And I think he's saying now like November is his favorite month to do musky in Ottawa. And I can see why. He's just catching beef after beef.
Just mucho beefo.
Massive fish. Yeah. Just crazy. I'm like, fuck, that's awesome. It's really cool. You know? And growing up in Ottawa, like I knew about the muskie, obviously, but I wasn't like by any means, I didn't even fish for muskie when I was in Ottawa.
No.
Like I never went out fishing for muskie, you know?
Well, I was like we talk about it. It's a bit intimidating, you know, in terms of like, what am I using? Like, is it? I definitely never had like rods big enough, and including my spinning rods, right?
No, exactly. I didn't have rods big enough. I didn't have a boat either. Maybe I just assumed I needed a boat. I don't know. I hooked into muskie like 4 times in Ottawa, and they always like fishing bass, and it always. So I should have been like, why don't I fish those? But I think I was just maybe I was just like, it's not for me for some reason. Maybe it felt too niche. And there was so many other good things, bass, pike, whatever, walleye. But now I'm like, if I was living in Ottawa, that's all I would do.
It's like Josh. Like Josh. Oh, it's a little niche.
It's a little niche.
A little nosh.
Well, I'm going to be doing a little musky stuff soon. Can't say exactly for what.
Okay.
Because it's a bit of a secret, but
okay, sorry.
Yeah, I just realized that. I can't give any deets, but it's going to be sick. I'm going to be fishing muskie in December, so a couple days from when this comes out.
Wow.
It's going to be cold, and it's going to be big fish. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
no flies.
Cool.
No flies.
No flies.
I know. I can't say why. But stay tuned because everybody listening, I'm going to be promoting the hell out of this thing soon. This is a side thing. This is not. It's not a SoFly thing. Me and Aldo aren't working on this together. But
yeah, thanks for the invite.
Yeah.
I guess my invite got lost in the mail.
Well, this is like my 9 to 5, but it crosses.
My invite must have got lost in the mail. That's all.
Well, you can come to the premiere.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Wow. I'll have to pay though.
Well, yeah. I could try to get you a ticket. I could try to comp you.
It's somehow double price. Well, that's cool. Maybe whatever this is, you'll at least learn some stuff about muskie that maybe you didn't know before.
I think I probably will, because it's with some people that are very dialed on the muskie thing.
Okay.
From a gear standpoint.
Okay.
Yeah, like at one point when I was doing research for this, I texted Bob Azumi.
Oh,
because
how's Bob doing?
He's doing great. But I was like, who? I was asking him for some names of people that might be good for this kind of thing. And I know it's very cryptic right now, but it'll make sense later. And he said,
some musky people. You need a musky people.
Yeah, and he said, he's like, this guy is the guy. And so and then that happened to be the guy that we're doing it with. So I was like, oh, sick. Okay, so yeah, I'm excited to see. It's one of the things where they're just so particular about the setup and how they're going to do this, and they just have it so dialed after decades and decades. Like, think about it. We fish, and we're like, let's say we do, one of the rivers that we like for steelhead, and it's like a very specific thing. It's like, okay, we've got it pretty dialed in terms of like our approach to fishing that. Now, let's say we do that every fall, multiple weekends for the next 30, 40 years. You know what I mean? We're going to be so specific about how we fish. It's going to be like, okay, like we're going to go to that rock and we're going to use exactly 4 feet of line. And we're going to, you know what I mean? Like it's like so specifically dialed. And so I get the sense that these guys are kind of like that. It's like they've been doing it here for so long. It's like, no, we know to the inch where our lines need to be when, how we need to be fishing them. So it's going to be cool. It's going to be big water, big fish, and early eve, like dark, so it's going to be
dark.
Well, the day, it's going to be dark. It's going to be trippy. It's going to be scary. And I think that's what you want when it comes to muskie a little bit.
You want to be scared?
I am a little scared when it comes to muskie. Like, you see these fish Josh is posting on Instagram, like, these are nice fish, man. They're huge. And those are the fish that I remember seeing when I was in Ottawa. Like, when I three very distinct ones. The one that ate my bass when I was sitting side saddle on my kayak on the Ottawa near Champlain.
Yeah, that'll leave an impression.
Yeah, I was like, Jesus, because I could see the thing like boil out of the water and eat this thing. The one that ate the duck on that other river when I was waiting, that was like,
I love that.
That was scary. And then the one that took my red devil when I was spin fishing on the Rideau, one of the locks, and the thing just comes up and cuts the line. It was that was the fish. And I saw the whole side of the fish, and I was like, that was not a perch.
Pretty sure.
Because I was just looking for perch. But yeah, musky are cool. And it was a fun chat with Josh. Really fun.
Rad dude, super nice. And it was really fun sharing the water with him. Yeah. Even though he was on Matt's boat, and even though we said we were going to switch boats, we never did.
Yeah. Well, next fall, I think, well, he's down, and I've been like, let's fish. So I think we should go to Ottawa and do a whole weekend or something with him.
For sure.
Yeah,
we didn't make it to Ottawa this year. And we
I know.
This summer evaporated.
Next year we got to. Next year we got to. I think it'd be cool to
There we go.
Try and fish next year every weekend, some capacity. Like every single weekend. Even if it's just like, a pond near here.
Like we just fill a bathtub with water.
Do whatever we have to like.
I'm down.
Try to
fish once a week.
Yeah, just like try to fill the calendar with like every weekend we fished something. I think that would be a cool goal. It's like when you take a selfie every day, and then at the end of the year, it's like you have a year of selfies. You can see your face changing and getting sadder and older and fatter. It's kind of like that.
More malnourished.
But fishing. Yeah.
Okay. I
think it'd be possible. And the cool thing about that New Year's resolution, which I guess we're starting to talk about NYRs. New Year's resolutions. NYRs. Is because it's almost the new year. But the cool thing about that is if we're, we travel a lot for all kinds of reasons, work and whatever. We might, if we're forced to have to fish at least once a week, wherever we are, no matter what, we might find some like really weird fishing places,
All right.
Can be kind of cool. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm in, man.
Groovy, baby.
I'm obviously in.
What else we got going on?
Nothing.
Everything, I think. Yeah.
Just going to try and steelhead as much as we can till December 31st, because I think we're going to get favorable conditions.
I wonder if it's going to be like a snowy winter, a wintry winter, or if it's just going to be like, let's just keep steelheading in January.
They say it's going to be cold.
Yeah.
But what do they know? And what does cold mean anymore?
Yeah, like it's like 10. People are like, ooh.
I know.
So cold.
I'm like, we'd walk like
it was minus 40 when we were like 9.
I know. We're like sounding like those old men. We're back in my day.
It was cold.
But honestly, back in my day, it was cold. We could just leave it at that. My nostrils would freeze shut when I would walk outside to go. I hope
we get a cold winter. It'd be fun to ice fish close to home. I'd like to fish. I'd like to go ice fishing in Ottawa a few times this year. That'd be sick. Get that hut out. We do have. Do we announce the sportsman show thing?
Well, we can mention that they're bringing back the fly fishing pavilion, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's not like a secret, right?
No, which is really cool, and we're going to be involved in some sort of capacity. We're just not sure yet, so keep an eye out for that. It's going to be. We're going to tell you all about it.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, Yeti, Hook A, and us are going to be involved as well as Dan, aka Live to Fish.
Yeah.
And we've had one phone call with them, and yeah. But more on that when we know more.
Oh.
No.
Well, I've got ideas, buddy.
Fucking no rain in the forecast. God damn it.
Nothing but sunshine coming at you.
Ugh. That's what you want for steelheading.
Yeah, just bright sun, no rain.
Yeah. Really helps push fish into the system.
Warm days. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they love that. Steelhead love that.
Fuck. Yeah.
Yeah, well. Yeah. Sights set on Belize.
Oh, shit. That's true. That's something to look forward to.
Yeah, we're going to Belize in February. Some friends. With some buddy old pals. I think that's going to be a fun little...
Oh, it's going to be so much fun.
Piece of content.
Well, apparently up in Meaford, it's supposed to snow all weekend.
Whoa, no way. Snow.
So those Lake Huron tribs might have magical snowy wonderland.
That'd be sick to fish in. Love the idea of fishing in a snowstorm right now.
It is kind of fun sometimes, you know, big fluffy flakes.
Oh my god, yeah. It's
badass. Oh my god, yeah.
Oh my god, yeah. It's beautiful.
Oh my god, yeah. Okay, well,
rock and roll.
This has been a bit of a stream of consciousness here.
Yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. That's it for me, Mitch, Aldo.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.
Comb your hair.